Well, it's about time for another contest, I think. So let's get going with that. Right now, I've got two challenges that are ongoing, and a bunch of people have replied to that, and I hope some more still continue to do so. That's one of them is about the future of the Beatles and vinyl, and the second one is about to name your favorite decade and then name your favorite album from every year of that decade. So keep those coming in and keep sending me message to let me know if and when you do that so I can watch it. But contest time, I think those were just challenges, so let's have a contest and let's have a little bit of fun. The music, you got rock, soul, country, rap, classical, opera, world music, folk music, all sorts of music, and that's just the broad general categories. You know, what else you got? Garage, glam rock, heavy metal, psych, new wave, punk, paisley underground, ska, British beat, psychobilly, show tunes, music hall marches, northern soul, funk, disco, sunshine pop, bubblegum, math rock, no, I don't know what that is either, bebop, trad, jazz, as in traditional jazz, Dixieland, folk, prog, krautrock, rockabilly, western swing, delta blues, baroque, chamber, and so on and so forth. The lists just go on forever. But Steffi Vaughn kind of took me to task. Took me to task is probably not the right word, but she mentioned the truism that there's only two types of music, good and bad, and maybe we shouldn't label it, and that's probably true. But I guess we do that just to, I don't know why we do that. Maybe because Miles Davis is great, and the Shangri-Las are great, and the Clash are great, but they're all great music, but nobody's going to confuse any of those three for the other. So maybe it makes it a little bit easier, or maybe it puts up walls between listening to music. I'm not sure. But for the purpose of this contest, we're going to talk genres, specifically rock and roll. And it's a pretty simple idea. The idea came to me. It didn't come to me. I saw it on a message board a few years ago. Somebody on a music message board posted, what's the word association where you say red and you think of, I don't know, fire, you say some word and you think of something immediately. Say the first thing that comes to mind if I say snow or car or whatever. So the game is rock and roll. If I say rock and roll, what is the first song that comes to mind? And not necessarily so much the first song that comes to mind, but if someone came to you, for example, someone might have no idea what psychobilly is, and you might know and be interested in that type of music, and you could explain it to them. Someone might not know what northern soul is as opposed to just regular old soul music, and they might know that you're into that and come to you and say, what is this northern soul stuff? And you could tell them what it is and explain it to them. So in the very unlikely situation that somebody comes to you and, Bobby Gass out there, says, hey, Bobby, you're into this, you're into the rock and roll. I hear all about the rock and roll, but not really sure that I know what the rock and roll is. What's the rock and roll, Bobby? Tell me, please. I want to know. And so Bobby starts to explain it, from the disparate elements of folk and country and blues and well, forget this. Instead of explain it to you, let me just play you some songs. And so Bobby goes home, figures out what song he's going to play, and comes back the next day and plays. So is this making sense? That's the contest. If I say rock and roll, or if someone comes up to you and says, what is rock and roll? Which of course is highly unlikely because everybody knows what rock and roll is, but let's just pretend that there's someone out there that doesn't. So your job is to pick, in your opinion, well, of course it's in your opinion, it's your entry, wouldn't be my opinion, but your job is to pick the 1 to 5 songs, no more than 5, 1 to 5 songs that you think someone that doesn't know what rock and roll is, this is going to tell them everything they need to know about rock and roll. This 1 to 5 songs epitomize rock and roll, define rock and roll, sum up, have all the elements of rock and roll, so that this person that didn't know what rock and roll was is going to have a really good idea of what you're talking about after he's heard the clips of these songs. So Well, that's it. Just you know, you can look at it as if I say rock and roll, what are the first five songs that come to mind, or if someone comes up to you and has no clue what rock and roll is, and you decide to play them five songs, 1 to 5 songs, the what would you go pick out? You know, I mean, the Beatles are a rock and roll band, but you might, but I'm thinking you're probably not gonna pick "She's Leaving Home." Great song, but it wouldn't be my idea of the ultimate epitome of rock and roll type song. So that's it. Yeah, no more than 5 songs because sorry, Karsten Olsen. I don't want coming on here anybody coming on here and playing like clips of 50 songs. So let's keep it 1 to 5 songs. You can do one because I'm thinking of 2 songs. I'm not going to name them that have had a book written about them, an entire book about each of these 2 songs, 2 separate books. So you can pick 1 song and say, out of all the rock and roll songs out there, this is the one to me that best sums up rock and roll, and then you play a clip of it or whatever if you want to, and then you can explain why it sums up rock and roll. You can say, well, it's got all the requisite elements of rock and roll, everything that a rock and roll song needs, and it's got, or however you want to explain it. Or you can do 5 songs, or you can do 2, 3, or 4 songs, whatever, 1 to 5 songs, and you know, you can play the clips of the songs if you want. I know there's YouTube flags used for sometimes on these songs, so if you don't want to do that, if you just want to name the songs, and you can talk about them a little bit to say why you think they are representative of rock and roll, the ultimate representation of rock and roll, these 5 songs or 1 song or whatever songs, and that's it. You know, I mean, don't play the whole song because obviously, if you pick 5 songs, that's 20 minutes right there. So just, you know, play a clip because a lot of these I'm thinking are songs that we're going to know, but there might be some surprises, some kind of more obscure songs that you think are the ultimate manifestation of rock and roll, the definition of rock and roll. And as far as what your definition of rock and roll is, I'll leave that up to you. If you think Engelbert Humperdinck and Beethoven are rock and roll, uh, I don't know about all that, but that's fine with me, you know, because I'm just thinking that, you know, just if I say rock and roll, some people automatically are going to think Elvis, Jerry Lewis, Buddy Holly, and Chuck Berry. Some are going to think Beatles, Rolling Stones, Yardbirds. Some are going to think psychedelic, Grateful Dead, Jefferson Airplane, heavy metal. Some are going to think punk rock and Clash and whatever, you know. So I mean, it's a big boat there. So you might want to pick some from the different eras, or you want to whatever you want to do. Just your 1 to 5 songs that you think define rock and roll, or tell someone everything they need to know about rock and roll. That is the contest. The second part of the contest, which is totally voluntary. You don't have to do this. You have to do the rock and roll thing for the contest. But if after doing rock and roll you want to pick some other genres, you want to pick soul. Here's my 1 to 5 songs that I think define soul music or folk music or classical music or whatever. You can do that too, and that'd be kind of cool. And I would encourage people to do that because it'd be fun to watch. That doesn't really count one way or another toward the contest, but the rock and roll is the main question in the contest. But do other genres if you want, do as many as you want, break it down and do psychedelic music or heavy metal music after you've done just rock and roll in general if you want, or uh, show tunes or whatever. I don't care. So that's it. Prize is the same, $25 gift card to Amazon. The deadline, I'm going to do it May the 1st, which seems like a long time, but I'm going to run it out a little bit and see if we can get some entries here. Hoping to see all the usual suspects that respond to my challenges and contests, but I would like to see some other people on top that haven't done so yet. And so start making your entries. Let's define rock and roll and tell me what you think the ultimate rock and roll songs are. I've got my list. I'm not going to give it away at this time because one of my contests I did like your favorite music intros or your favorite, I think it was the favorite music intros contest, and I mentioned a song and someone came on or someone emailed me and said, "Oh man, that was my first choice. Now I can't use it." It's like, well, yeah, you can use it. Just it's fine. Just because I used it doesn't mean you can't. But I think that person ended up not using it. So I don't want to put out any of uh, my choices. I don't want to muddy the waters and someone think just because I name something that they can't use it. So get the entries in. May the 1st deadline, and what, $25 gift card, and get to it. Have fun.